This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Thursday, June 29th, 2023, and I have the excellent Jason Cipriani here. How are you, Jason? How are things?
Things are good, Miriam. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. A little warm here in the Northwest today. So, we're sweating it out, basically, in this podcast.
Yeah. We've had a lot of heat here in Colorado the last week or so. It's been crazy. But I felt like I've lived in the Northwest up until this point, though. We've had, I don't know, 20 inches of rain in the last month and a half or something, which is not normal for us at all.
Now, that sounds really unusual for Colorado. Yeah, if you see me on Patreon with a sweaty forehead, you know what's going on. For those of you watching the video version. All right, so, I want to spend the majority of this hour talking about Pixel Fold. I don't have one. I played with it at I.O., though, and you are reviewing it currently for CNN. So I want to know your take. I want to know everything because I'm a Pixel fangirl, but I hate the Tensor chip. So, that's kind of where I'm at, right? So where are you at with it after 2 weeks or whatever?
Yeah, so I've had it about 10 days. They sent it to me last Monday, and the review embargo was up the following Monday, which just wasn't enough time, especially for it being a new device and a new Pixel and Google's first foldable, right? And so I'm working on my review actually today. I'm writing it. I'm about 90% there. And I'm a Pixel fan as well. And I think I haven't got to the conclusion yet, but I think where I'm going to end up on this is this might just be my favorite phone so far in 2023.
Wow.
It is really good. And I don't really have any problems with Tensor or performance or anything like that across any of the Pixels. But here's where I think, and I haven't read any other reviews. I've read some headlines, I've read some posts on Mastodon and whatnot, but I think a lot of people don't enjoy the layout and the aspect ratio of the Pixel Fold compared to like the Z Fold 4, right? Which is taller.
Yeah, right. I saw that.
And then you have the Fold, Pixel Fold, which is basically a landscape version. It's blurring it, but
we can see it. We got the aspect ratio there, yeah.
I actually prefer the landscape orientation of the Fold, both on the outer display and on the inner display. The outer display I can use like a full phone, right? I could do everything I want to do. Typing isn't cramped like it has been on Samsung's foldables or the Z Fold line. And I have the internal display as a backup option when I need more from it, which I find super appealing and easier to hold and access stuff, specifically the keyboard and buttons near the top of the display when it is in that landscape orientation and the screen is shorter compared to the Z Fold where it's two phones side by side, so it's taller. Honestly, I've enjoyed it thoroughly over the last 10 days.
Well, that's pretty amazing. So, my take on this is, have you used any of the Oppo Find N series phones? Not the flip one, but the actual book ones.
No.
So it's exactly the same thing. When I got the original Oppo Find N, which is a little smaller than Pixel, but has that passport form factor of, a wider, shorter front screen, and then you open it, it's a landscape experience and not a portrait experience. That immediately felt right to me. The Folds never felt right to me, and I never bought one because, well, first of all, I don't really like One UI very much, even though they've done some incredible things to maximize the experience, right? Like, I don't want to deny that. I just feel like for me, given the option, I think this form factor is the better factor for a folding phone that's a book-style folding phone. Now, of course, it seems like, from what you've said and what I've read, that there are some things that can still be done to take better advantage of this form factor. But, this is Google. I don't expect them to figure it out right away or even ever. Right. And the way I'd see this is run two apps side by side, right? Or, kind of come up with your own, use case. With the Find N and the Find N2, what I found was I was basically using that inner screen as a larger screen. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't actually trying to do anything special with it. I was like on the front all the time. And then I was like, oh, I need to really see this better. Boop. And then of course some apps didn't work, like Instagram, at least on the Find series I'm talking about. I don't know on Pixel, but Instagram would they don't
Sure.
understand landscape and they just, oh man, Insta really got to get on top of that. They still don't have an iPad app, do they?
No, they don't. So Instagram on the Pixel Fold takes up one half of the screen, one side, right? So it works like a smartphone app with the display open. The Facebook app takes up 3/4 of the screen and is extremely awkward and weird to use. However, if you rotate the Fold, it takes up the entire screen as if it was a standard non-landscape orientation, like a tablet or whatever. So there's some work to be done. Google has done a ton of work to optimize apps for not only foldables, but also it's the Pixel tablet, which, I mean, let's be honest, when you open up the Pixel Fold, you're basically using a Pixel tablet mini at that point. The UI is the same, multitasking is the same. You have the taskbar at the bottom, you can drag apps around and use split screen and the bar to move them and all of that. So there's a lot of work done there, but there's a lot more work to be done. It's funny to me, Apple Music works perfectly on the Fold and Facebook doesn't. So we have an app from Apple that supports the Pixel Fold out of the box, but Facebook is not properly optimized. But Instagram is to an extent.
Amazing.
It's funny.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, honestly. This kind of feels to me like the ongoing Google story, right? Like I love them dearly. I love the Pixels, but it always seems that they're not quite as aggressive at fleshing out their concepts that they come up with, right? They're kind of more like, here, we're going to do this form factor, and then, others can kind of come in and make it better, make it go, right? And then we'll take the good stuff they do and put it back into Android in like 3 years, And I've accepted that. Like I get it. But at the same time, I feel like as a Pixel user, I'm always torn. So I love my Pixel experience overall. Like I'm not talking about Fold here, just in general. I love all the features it brings to the table. I love the way the user experience is. But what I don't like is the little hardware niggles, right? And they're starting to grate on me, to be honest. Like that's the thing that, like, I don't think I'm going to go anywhere else. I don't see anywhere else I want to go as a daily driver. And for me, a lot of it has to do with Tensor, and it's mostly around cell reception, performance, and battery life. I have constant issues with both previously my Pixel 6 Pro, and although I still use that a lot, and a Pixel 7 Pro with overheating. It just gets warm in my pocket, It gets hot. And I think it's having a hard time finding a strong signal or whatever it might be. And it's, it's not killing the battery, but it's definitely decreasing the battery. And it's also unpleasant. And I don't understand why they can't get this fixed. And it's bothering me because I'm hoping that Tensor G3 on the Pixel 8s will fix this. But this is Tensor G2 on the Fold. So,
it is.
They didn't send me a review unit, although I've been reaching out to them every other day or so. And I don't think I will get one. And I don't want to spend $1,800 on a device that has a chipset that's, sunsetting and has some issues already, even though I loved my experience with the Pixel Fold.io. And of course, the cameras are going to be amazing. How's your experience been with those?
Yeah, actually, that was a big part of my review that I just got through. For the last 10 days, whenever I've been out taking pictures, it's the Pixel experience. That's the short answer, right? And you're getting exactly what you get from the Pixel 7 Pro, but now you have it in a foldable, which has always been a weakness of Samsung's foldable phones. The cameras in the Z Fold line have not been the best. They haven't been up to par with what you expect from an S series smartphone. And Google didn't skimp on the Pixel experience here with the Fold. And so every time I've been out and it's come time to take a picture with the family, they specifically have told me, take it with the Fold, not with your iPhone. And it's because the pictures are that much better, right? And normally iPhone's with me every day, right? And they know that, and that's what I go to. But the Fold has definitely won them over. You have the 20x super res zoom, which still I think kicks Samsung's butt when it comes to the AI enhancements they do on that. And then the 5x optical zoom still does a great job as well. And then, the main sensor, it just, all of it is exactly what you would expect from a Pixel phone, and it's on a foldable, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, that's what's got me the most excited. Somebody made the analogy, I can't remember which reviewer it was, that it's like, take everything you love about the Pixel 7 Pro in terms of imaging, and scale it down just a bit, in the same way as if you take anything that you love in the Pixel 7 and you then use a 7a, that slightly lesser sensor, you can notice sometimes some decrease in performance, but you really have to do a side-by-side to notice. And, to me, that's a totally acceptable compromise for the kind of Z-depth and form factor, thickness, thinness, whatever you want to call it, on a device like that. Even at 1800, a lot of people are like, how can they compromise? Well, Samsung compromises. So, quite a bit more, I would say. So that I don't think is in question for me. The form factor, I don't think is in question. I love the Passport form factor. And, sure, I think that we can, even if I had this as a daily, I could probably be critical of the user experience in terms of they haven't quite figured out how to optimize it. Yeah. But that to me doesn't matter, because every day today, I'm not the kind of person who goes through all the effort of configuring a larger screen devices, to be like, oh, I have my little app in this corner, kind of like, windowed experience. Like I would never run windowed apps in my phone. Like it's not me. I know it's possible, but like it's a phone. Like you're doing it to do some quick things, even though sometimes they're longer things, they are not going to replace your laptop. I'm still going to pull out my laptop when I need to, right?
Yeah, and the split screen apps work well, right? Like in the drag and drop, the new stuff that they've added with drag and drop, being able to drag text from one password to any text field, stuff like that.
And that's basically what I'm saying. Like I just need those two panes, two apps, and I'm good. I don't want to like go crazy and like. No. So to me, as long as it supports that, okay, I think I'm all right. What has battery life been like? Because that's the thing with Tensor, right?
Yeah. So my real world experience, day 1 and day 2, was less than 24 hours battery life. And that's what Google touts it as, right? You should be able to get 24 hours of both mixed use and it'll last you through a day. Since then, I've gone to bed with 35% charge left. That's probably with 4 or 5 hours of screen time. And it's been fine. But when I run like a battery benchmark that I run for every phone and tablet and computer that I review, that has come in at like 10 hours and 56 minutes.
Wow, that's actually pretty good. Are you talking about PC Mark Work 3?
Nope. What I do is I use VLC, and there's a 4K video file that we
that's what you guys do. You loop
50%, right? But you have like the Fold 4 was 12 hours and 37 minutes. So 2 hours difference. But then you get to something like the OnePlus 10, that's 18 hours. So it's all over the place. But the Pixel Fold at 10 hours is one of the lowest battery runtimes I think we've ever had, next to the Pixel 4a, right? So
give me a comparison. If you have the numbers for your test for Pixel 7 Pro, what are you getting?
That one was not run. I didn't review that for CNN, so it's not on the list. So Pixel 7 Pro and Pixel 7 are not on here. But the closest Pixel, the last one was the Pixel 4a that the battery test was run, which wasn't Tensor. So no Tensor phones have had the battery test run till today.
If you have a Pixel 7 Pro and you have a minute, which none of us have right now, but I would suggest you try that, because that will give you a good point of reference to calibrate. For me, I run PC Mark Work 3 simply because that's what hot hardware wants. And it is, we actually use a light meter to set the nits on the screen to 200. I use a light meter app, to be clear, on an iPhone, by the way. Yeah, I know you guys are all going to kill me for having an iPhone. You know I have an iPhone. I record all my videos on an iPhone. But the light meter apps on the iPhone are plentiful and actually very accurate. So we use that to calibrate. We just go in a dark room and there's a calibration window which just shows you white, and you just put the light mode and set the brightness manually. Turn off auto brightness, and then I run it, and it does 100 to 20% discharge. And it does a bunch of mixed stuff. So it simulates browsing the web, watching videos, bunch of things. And that's a really pretty good test. And kind of a short running time on that would be like between 6 and 8 hours. And a long running time on that would be like 12 plus, 12, 15. So like the best phones are in the 12, 15 range. The worst phones are in like the 6, 8. So, it sounds like to me, you're kind of somewhere in the middle, which actually is pretty impressive considering. Do you find yourself using more the outside screen then? Because that's how I found myself with the Find series, the Oppos, to use the outside screen way more. Like I just use it like a normal phone, and every now and then I'm like, oh, I'm frustrated. And I would open it up and relief. Right?
Yeah, it's situational. If I'm waiting in line or sitting in the car waiting for my kids to come outside or doing something where it's going to be a very simple interaction with the phone, I'm on the front screen. But if I'm sitting down on the couch ready to start browsing whatever social app at the time and then listening to music and whatever, it's open. So I would say it's probably 60-40 outside screen, inside screen. So it's almost equal, but there's a lot of outside screen use, and that's because, like you said, of the design, and it just is easier. You could type on it. Like that's the biggest thing for me with the Z Folds is you can actually type out more than 2 words and feel comfortable doing so.
Yeah. That was my experience with the Find N series as well. You can type on it. It's like the Find N is a little smaller. Think iPhone 13 mini.
Yeah,
that's the front screen of the Find N series and Find N2. The inside though is like 7, almost 7. So the Pixel I think is a little taller and a little wider. But honestly, I think this is the killer form factor. I think I kind of want to see Samsung go in that direction and also fix the crease thing where it's a teardrop and it's perfectly closed. You saw Ron Amadeo's review on Ars Technica, right? Yeah. Do you think this is a one-off issue? I mean, we haven't seen any other reports.
There are reports on Reddit. They're all over Reddit.
They are? So this is actually a problem, huh?
Well, it's something to keep an eye on, is basically how I feel about it. There's probably, I don't know, under half a dozen other reports on Reddit of people who experienced the same exact thing. Some with the screen protector that peeled off the moment they opened the phone, so no use at all. I think the bigger, I have no issues with mine at all so far, 10 days in, so knock on wood that it stays that way. But I think the bigger thing to pay attention to here is how Google responds to it, right? Every foldable has had problems at launch. Even Z3, Z Fold 3, Z Fold 4, there have been issues like this. And really how the company responds, does Google make these people jump through hoops to get it replaced? Or do they say, all right, manufacturing defect, we'll take care of it right away? I think that's really what you need to watch for.
Yeah, well, is your kind of instinctual thought on that? Because to me, my instinctual thought is it's not going to end well. Like Google just doesn't seem to communicate very well with anybody. Yeah. They don't communicate well with us journalists. And I'm wondering how, because it's such a low volume product too, if they're actually going to take care of people and just like, whatever, let Best Buy deal with it, or let our crappy customer support that we have for the Google online store deal with it.
You break, I fix kits sending out to your house. Oh yeah,
they have
that
too, right?
Yeah. And they announced they are going to have official parts available through there. So is that the solution? I don't know. Time will tell. Google never said the phone was delayed, right? But the phone was announced at I/O.
It's clearly delayed because have you seen the dates? I had a conversation with some friends this morning from the media. We have like this little, conversation group thing going. And some orders placed now are shipping in September.
Right. Yeah, there was definitely a moment where Google pushed all orders back, including orders from carriers. So when
Wow.
Carrier started taking orders earlier this week instead of shipping last week, instead of shipping on the 27th when they were supposed to. No orders are shipping before July 18th. So that's like the official unofficial launch date, when it should have been the 27th. And so I think Google knows there might be some problems out there, and that's why they delayed it a little bit without officially announcing a delay. So hopefully they take care of the issues for, the early adopters.
I hope so too. I hope they make right for people because, Pixels are so wonderful and hardware is always what kind of brings it down, right? Have people having issues with their Pixels. I've been lucky. The only issue I've ever had on the entire Pixel lines, mind you, they were all review units. So I never bought and spent my own money on them, but was on the original Pixel, the microphone died. That was a common problem.
That happened a lot on that one.
The main mic, but it died like almost 2 years in, like a year and a half in or something. Like I actually already had my Pixel 2 replacement that I was already using, but I hadn't transitioned everything over yet. So I was like, okay, I guess this is my cue to abandon my original Pixel and move everything over to the 2. And so, but that was the only hardware problem I've experienced on any Pixel so far. Oh, actually, no, the Pixel 3 XL. But again, this is after almost 3 years of use because I was super lazy and I didn't like the Pixel 4. So I never updated. I had one, but I never made it my main. So I had a Pixel 3 XL for like something like 3 years. How bad do you have to be of a tech journalist to have a Pixel 3 XL for 3 years? But towards the end, I was having a well-documented issue with the Bluetooth radio disconnecting basically. And what it is the surface mount chip for Bluetooth, some of the components for that on the board were popping off the circuit, like the solder joints were coming off. And so if I pressed hard on the phone, it would reconnect and my Bluetooth would work again for a week. And then one day I'd drop the phone or I'd tap the phone and I'd cause that thing to disconnect. And apparently a lot of people fix that, like technical people who have the tools to do solder reflow. They would just reflow the components and everything would work again. But of course, I'm not going to do that.
No.
So I went to
a 3-year-old phone.
So the reason I waited so long was because I wanted a large Pixel, and the Pixel 4 did not have a fingerprint sensor. And so a lot of my apps didn't work with the face authentication that they had, even though it was brilliant. It didn't work with them. And I used a lot of apps that have fingerprints. So I was like, okay, I'll jump over the 4 and wait for the 5. But then the 5 was a small phone, and I was like, I need something bigger than that. So I stuck on with my XL, and then finally when Pixel 6 came out, 6 Pro, I was like, oh yeah, I'm all over that.
So let's talk a little bit about the fingerprint and face unlock, because the Fold has face unlock, just like the Pixel 7 Pixel face unlock. So it unlocks the phone, but doesn't let you into any apps like password managers or banking or whatever app you have that's behind biometrics.
And that's pretty standard, right? The Pixel 7 Pro does the same.
Yeah, but it only has it on the front display.
Oh, interesting.
So I didn't talk about that. The front display camera, so the front camera and the inner display camera, both of those you're not going to want to use them. They're good, but not.
So are they worse than on a Pixel 7 Pro then?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, are they worse than on a Pixel 7a?
They're probably on par with that. But you can fold the phone so you have the viewfinder, the front screen is your viewfinder and the rear cameras are facing you. And that's what you're going to want to use to take selfies. But the fingerprint sensor is on the right edge of the phone. And that works fine too when you have the Fold opened and you need to unlock it. But my biggest gripe is, why not face unlock on both of the front facing cameras? And so when you first set it up, it tells you face unlock will work on the front display, but it will not work on the internal display. But
weird.
Very weird. And I can't tell you how many times I've had the phone open and I've just stared at it, waiting for it to unlock and take me to the home screen. And I'm just sitting there staring at it going, what is going on? I'm
actually and then finally picturing Jason like being numbly like confused.
yeah. And then I remember, you got to use the fingerprint sensor, but I don't understand why it's not on both. I'm sure there's some reason, but it's a minor annoyance and definitely a gripe I have with face unlock on it. It should be on both sensors.
Yeah. Any other little things that are not obvious from the hands-ons that I might not even be noticeable from reading other reviews that you think are significant? Niggles.
It doesn't open all the way flat by default.
It still doesn't. I thought that was just because they were fresh and new and stiff kind of
Maybe.
thing. Because I noticed that at I/O.
Yeah, so it opens probably 170 degrees. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but it opens mostly flat, right? And then if you push a little
Yeah.
bit more, then it opens all the way. And I've asked Google about this. They said the hinge opens 180 degrees, which it does with that second press of opening it. But every time you open it, you have to do that because it just kind of defaults to not completely flat. And so then, and I think, honestly, I think either maybe it's a break-in thing, it's not broken in the hinge, but I think it might be a stress relief thing for the display, right? So someone doesn't just crack it open and you crack it down the crease and it kind of eases into
Oh,
it.
yeah.
That's my current theory. Obviously, I'm just, talking from experience and Google hasn't told me anything, but for it to be very deliberate that you have to push it again to get it to lay flat, it just feels like it's a design choice to protect the screen.
But it's strange to me. This is the kind of thing you want to share with journalists, right? It's like we thought about this problem,
Yeah.
right? Because unlike the Galaxy Fold, we have this. We don't have the gap, so it's a lot more stress on the screen if you open it all the way. And because
Right.
of that, we put in a mechanism where yes, you can push it open, but it doesn't by default do that. To me, that's like geekery, right? Like cool
100%.
stuff, right? Like why not talk about this kind of stuff? Like it's
It's a
almost
safety
like
feature to protect your phone.
yeah, it's almost like Google does this a lot where they are like doing some magically awesome things and then they don't want to tell us about the tech behind them. Like they try to
Yeah.
do the Apple thing of deleting the tech, of it doesn't matter, it's about the experience. But the reality is they're not Apple. They're just, a much more techie company in some ways. And they should share that stuff. That's what our audiences thrive on. So like, I don't know. I wish like the whole Pixel since the 6 series has been brilliant.
It has.
I don't want to dismiss that, but I really also feel like this whole going Tensor and Samsung partnership thing is just kind of like that last little thing that they could have done to really nail the hardware by going with Qualcomm or MediaTek, they didn't do. And I'm not saying they have to go full on. Like, look at Oppo again. They have a Silicon X chip, which is an MPU, essentially a neural net processor, essentially a, AI processor that they use almost exclusively for imaging. And it's decoupled from either the MediaTek or the Qualcomm chip they're using on their phone. Why couldn't Google create Tensor as a special separate chip and just give us a Qualcomm chip for the rest of it or a MediaTek chip for the rest of it with all the great 5G reception, the good battery life, the optimized use of of everything? It just feels to me like every time they can get it perfect, they have one thing, But I don't want to complain too much because the 6 and 7 series was such a leap forward compared to what they did in the past, right?
I agree.
And this, again, I think is another leap forward for them because no matter who you are, making a folding phone, especially the first time, is a daunting thing,
Sure.
Look at how long it took Moto to get it right. You reviewed the Razr Plus.
Great
I
phone.
did too. Amazing phone. But it took them, 3 years to get to that?
And pausing their US launches in order to get it right in the US, right? They still released Razors in China over the last few years, but they basically put the US market on hold and said, let us perfect this first. And they pretty much did. That's one of the top phones of the year as well.
I agree. And I'm actually super excited about the cheaper one because I have a feeling we'll be blown away by the price.
Yeah.
I actually think it's going to be $599.
I would love to see a $599.
Can you imagine?
It would sell like crazy. Forget the front screen and all the fancy stuff you could do there.
Like my theory is that us nerds really love the Razr Plus because we can use the front display.
Yeah.
And then I think if you show it to a person, they'll be like, oh, right. Yeah, cool. I can use it one-handed and everything. But in reality, the majority of people out there are going to flip it open. And so that's why having a cheaper model makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, feedback I got from normal people about the Razer Plus when I was testing it is that's too many screens for me to break. And this is from Z Flip users who love having the display protected when it's closed, right? To them, that is their case, is closing the phone. And that is the way to protect the screen. And you add another 3.6-inch screen on the front, they don't want any part of that.
And that's fair. And I think this is why Moto was super smart to make two models.
Yep.
Plus, it lets them position a model, even if it's $699, it's going to be a great deal. Position a model below the flagship model to kind of make it seem like you have an option more affordable. And, although here in North America, we all get our phones subsidized, it doesn't matter. I think there's a kind of like an emotional trigger here of like, oh, it's only $699 or whatever. The $599 is I'm hoping for. But the point is like, and also coming out with the better one first, right?
Yeah,
kind of like sets the bar and then you can kind of go down from there. I think they really nailed it. It's surprising that I've been bitching at them for years now, giving them feedback and advice about how to do this right. And that they actually listen to people like you, me, Michael Fisher, and others, and finally got it right is kudos to them for finally doing that.
Yeah. The weak point there was the cameras, but even those are still all right.
I think this is a weak point for Moto in general, although it has improved. I reviewed the Edge Plus just before the Razer Plus, and honestly, they're getting there. They're actually sitting at the table of flagship cameras now, whereas before they weren't. And with the Razer Plus, they're right at the edge of that.
Yeah,
but it's accepted to be a little bit less because even Samsung, I mean, come on, the Z Flip 4 is not a reference in terms of imaging. It's fine, but it's not. I think the Z Flip 5 is gonna be killer cameras. This is what my feeling is. They're gonna really nail it because look at it this way. Oppo showed them how to do it with the Find N2 Flip, which I also have. That camera, wow. And again, Mary Silicon X, NPU, separate chip. Hasselblad, Color Science. The only thing I'm really pissed at Oppo for on this one is no OIS. I mean, it doesn't hurt it too much because the quality of the processing and the size of the sensor is so big. But come on, like you put Hasselblad on a camera that doesn't have OIS?
Right.
Are you nuts? I don't know. For me, that's like picking at little things, but a lot of people are rolling their eyes. I can tell right now.
Yeah, you can hear them.
I can hear them. But yeah, back to the Pixel Fold. How is sound quality on those speakers? It's got to have a little bit of space for good audio, right?
Yeah. I normally only talk on speakerphone here in my office, and I haven't had any issues with sound quality or for phone calls or when listening to music or watching, random YouTube videos or whatnot. They're oddly placed, I think.
Okay, where are they?
When it's closed, they're on the bottom, and there's one on the bottom, one on the top. But when it's closed and you're holding it just right, you can muffle it a little bit. So I usually just have to open it, and once you open it, the clarity becomes, much better. But other than that, there's nothing. They're not great. They're not horrible.
Because what surprised me on the Razer Plus was how good those speakers were. I was like, are you kidding me? This phone is tiny and you're having this incredible room-filling audio coming out of there? What the kind of like sorcery is this?
Yeah.
And then, so I'm kind of was hoping Pixel would do this. I mean, honestly, all the Pixels have relatively decent speakers these days. I think there's a lot of the phones these days that are pretty good. But there's variation in that goodness, right? Every now and then I'll listen to a phone speaker system and go like, whoa, that's impressive. I usually,
I didn't have that with this.
I cut my hair every week myself, right? I shave the sides of my head. And so that takes a little while because I do it in a mirror, kind of like the backwards, the look in the mirror with another mirror.
Yeah.
I'm used to it now. It's easy for me. But I always put some music on in the bathroom, and I don't have a dedicated speaker. So this is my test the speakers on the phone I'm reviewing moment. Right. Yeah. So I put on an album generally of something I really like that I'm really familiar with, and I just do my hair while listening to it. And that's how I judge. I'm like, okay, like how good is this speaker system going to be? And now my very high-tech and scientific evaluation of speaker systems on the phones I review, folks. Do you have a thing, or like, do you like, how you have your battery test? Do you have a methodology, or you just kind of haphazard randomly do it?
Yeah, I mean, there's only a few benchmarks I actually run or like sit down and actual test, right? And that's performance. We run some benchmarks for that and battery life. Outside of that, it's just living with it. Can I hear people clearly? And because realistically, that's what people care about, is not what number it puts up in Geekbench 6. It's, well, does it play Asphalt 9 or whatever game it is?
Right.
And can I do what I need to do on a daily basis? And so, no, I don't have specific speaker tests or camera tests. I just live with it. And at the end of the day, write down what I think about the experience.
Yeah, I do the same. No, I was thinking more along the line of like there's a particular album you always put on that you can kind of compare, Like I wasn't thinking like put out the level meters or anything crazy like that.
Yeah. No, there's some places that do, which good for them, but nah,
I know. Yeah. I mean, even Hot Hardware, which is pretty benchmark centric, doesn't care about the audio enough to do that. So I think you're okay, folks. If you expect this kind of testing, I say go talk to our French friends over at DxO, Mark. They actually, so I visited their labs in December. They flew me out to Paris, and because until then I was like, these guys, are they for real? And then I went to their labs and I was like, holy crap balls, they are for real. They just don't know how to market their messaging to make it look like they are for real. So no, seriously, they have an incredible setup for audio, an incredible setup for photography and everything. It's totally legit. Do they get paid for those results? I don't think they get paid to give better results, but they certainly get paid to kind of like have the results ready, ahead of launch and stuff, to kind of for the, in the same way as, like various publications like PC Mag and stuff have the awards, the whole system of awards out there is based on, companies paying. Like they don't pay for the award. The awards get issued, and if they want to be included in that, they pay for it, kind of thing, right? And I think a lot of that happens with DxO, and I think that's what the confusion is for a lot of people. Are like, this is not fair. No, it's the scientific testing is scientific. It's just that whether it's put on a pedestal or not is how much the company paid for it, right? Kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly. It's like Michelin stars with restaurants, right? Did you know those are pay to play too? Michelin stars, you have to pay to be considered for one.
Yeah, and so of course the numbers end up on the roster no matter what, but they might be buried, right? If Oppo or OnePlus or whatever doesn't pay, right? So yeah, that's how the world works, folks. All right, I'm trying to think what else stands out on this phone to me. How about the bezels? I personally didn't mind them when it's open. I don't
mind them either. I've talked to a lot of people who hate them. They're big. I don't know. Yeah, you can see.
I see them. For those of you on Patreon watching the video right now, this is you get to see Jason put it up there. It's nice though that the camera is being included in that bezel, right? Like, there's none of that crappy under display camera BS going on.
We're not doing any of the Z Fold tricks. No, they're big. Do they bug me though? No, I haven't ever thought, man, I wish the display was a little bit bigger because those bezels are so big. But when you look at it next to like a Z Fold, there's a huge difference in the approach there. And, to each their own. They don't bug me.
So would you say they're comparable to an iPad mini then? It's like, most tablets have a bit of a rim, even the latest Apple and the latest Samsung ones. So it's kind of more like that, right?
It is. Absolutely. I think the iPad mini is a good comparison.
And I think actually, if you think about it, if you want to hold on to a tablet, you probably do want a bit of a border. So that's not too bad. I mean, I'm not going to ding them on that because the hinge is so thin. But going back to Ron's experience at Ars Technica, I think what I wanted to ask you, I'm just remembering, I forgot, is do you think this theory is correct? The fact that they don't have enough of a bumper on the edge, is possible that some foreign matter like a grain of sand can get in that space and damage the display because in that area that's not protected by a screen protector. Yeah, because if you look at a Z Fold or a Z Flip or even the Oppos or there's a Razr, if you pull out your Razr right now, you'll see there's a significant comparatively edge, right?
Yeah, here's the Z Fold, which has a lip, right? Before you get to the screen and the protect.
Exactly, a lip. Thank you for using a proper word.
You're welcome. Yeah, they're really without the case, I mean, there's a small one on the Pixel Fold, but it's not as prominent as what is on the Z Fold. Without the case, you put the case on there, and the lip is pretty significant. Then, thanks to the case, though. So I wonder if Ron had a case on his when that happened.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Did they ship it with a case on the
Yeah,
review
we
units?
all received a case with it, and I've had it on mine the whole entire time I've been using it until today because I'm taking pictures. That's the only reason I took it off. So the entire time I've kind of been slightly annoyed at the lip that the case has made there because there's a little bit of a bump when you go to swipe up on the screen and stuff, but maybe that's on purpose.
Yeah, that's interesting. So maybe get a case, folks.
Yeah,
I'm not a
absolutely.
huge fan of cases, but I have gotten really rough and tumble with my phones over the years. I used to be much more respectful and nice to my devices, but as I think part of it is because I'm getting them for free, so I don't really care as much. I know it's terrible, but it's true. But also I have backups, right? Like if my Pixel 7 Pro dies right now, it would really suck because I don't think Google would send me a replacement. But I have a 7A, right? So it's not the end of the world. I can live with a 7A if I have to.
I can 100% relate to your attitude towards cases and having backup phones.
Yeah, but I have a case. That being said, because I've gotten more rough and tumble, I've noticed that my phones wear more and faster than they used to, and so I have started putting cases on them. And obviously, it's also making me worse because I'm now paying less attention. Like me throwing my phones somewhere is pretty much a daily occurrence. Rather than I didn't have a case on, I wouldn't do that. I would place it instead of like throw it on my desk 2 inches from, I do that because I don't care because nothing bad's going to happen if it's got a case on. Whereas if it's raw, you don't want to throw it because you might not crack anything, but you might scuff it. You might scratch the glass on the camera bump or like, I don't really care if I get a small scratch on the screen. Like I don't put a screen protector on my phones or anything like that.
Me either.
I don't mind if I get like the normal wear and tear on the glass of the screen, but the glass of the camera, you know me, I'm a camera person. Like it cannot happen. So for that, yeah. But look, we should continue with the rest of the stuff. Do you have any final thoughts on the Fold, the Pixel?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it all. Like $1,800 for a miniature Pixel tablet is going to be hard to swallow for a lot of people, and I think that's why Google is throwing in the Pixel Watch, right? Like
yeah. Oh, that's nice. You get that. Yeah, I have one. Mine. Okay. Speaking of devices I've beat the living crap out of, my Pixel Watch looks like it's gone to hell and back. Like there's not a single square inch of that screen that is not scratched. It's so bad. But it still works like a charm, okay? Yeah. Like it just looks really battle scarred.
I've been wearing my Pixel Watch for the last month. I just switched back to my Apple Watch yesterday. It's a great product. And I think they're doing that to lessen the blow of the $1,800 price tag because it is a lot. But that's where foldables are right now. Like that's just the market. And that's what this tech costs for consumers. I don't know. Is it worth $1,800? I haven't got there yet in my review. So I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah, I have a hard time justifying it, honestly. I feel like right now, if you want a folding phone, you're probably better off getting some sort of flip phone.
Yeah.
Because, look, for some of us, there's a very small group of us who are productivity crazy and travel crazy. And for those of us, I can see a folding book style phone being really justifiable. But the majority of you will be fine with like an S23 Ultra, a massive screen. You can get so much done on that. Like iPhone 14 Pro Max, a same deal. Or, even like my Pixel 7 Pro, like it doesn't look that big, but if you put it side by side with an S23 Ultra, it's almost as big, right?
Yeah, they're almost
like
identical.
I think it's just the design aesthetic makes it look smaller than it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say if you have the money, by all means. If you are kind of like stretching it, don't bother. Look, it's going to be another year and we'll have a Pixel Fold 2 or something. Like,
well, and Google's really aggressive with pricing too, right? They're like Samsung. You never buy anything at full price from them because it's going to be on sale weeks after release.
Yeah, and there's already like trade-in deals you can get, right? So that's another thing to consider. If you're going to do it, trade something in, something old that you're sitting in a drawer that's worth a lot, Speaking of folding phones that are book style phones, we're seeing more and more leaks and rumors about the OnePlus V Fold, which is supposedly what it's going to be called. And I'm actually pretty damn excited about this phone. It's like, I have a feeling that we're going to look back in September at this year's summer announcement, and we're going to be like, okay, Razer Plus, then Pixel Fold, then Samsung, whatever they're going to do with the Z Flip and Z Fold 5, and then OnePlus. And we're going to go like, holy crap balls, every single one of these phones is good.
Yeah, yeah.
And then on top of that, we're going to look back and say, look at regular phones like the Pixel 7a, like the Nothing Phone 2, which I have a feeling is going to be incredible. And we're going to be looking back going like, even the not so tech savvy phones are freaking dope. What is going on this year, Jason? How is it that everyone is playing their best game? It's crazy to me.
I don't know. The headline of my Razer Plus review are phones are fun again. And we went through several years where phones were just boring. They're boring slabs of glass that you couldn't iterative updates. But all of this, you didn't mention the iPhone. And so phones are fun again, no thanks to Apple, right? We know what we're going to get in the 15. It's going to be a small update, USB-C, some new cameras, boring. But yet we're getting these killer phones. If the OnePlus Fold shapes up to be what the rumored specs are, it's going to be a Z Fold competitor, a Pixel Fold competitor. And then, like you said, Nothing Phone 2, rumors showing that thing is going to be a contender. And
absolutely.
It's a lot of fun. It reminds me of 10 years ago when I was writing about phones every day, all the time. And then it slowed down. And just being a phone nerd right now in 2023 is so much fun.
It's amazing. Yeah, the reason I have good feelings about the phone too is because I played with the phone one for just 1 week at IFA last year. I borrowed Jaime Rivera's, and because they didn't send me a review in it, and that phone is so good, the phone one, and so I can only imagine it can go up from there, right?
Yeah.
And then if the pricing's right, they're just gonna be like minting them basically as fast as they can.
Yeah.
So going back to this OnePlus thing, some specs have been leaking. So this is interesting. 7.8-inch internal and 6.3-inch external displays. Obviously AMOLED, 120 hertz. I think they're going to be LTPO on the main panel inside, but probably not on the outside. And that's fine. 4,800 milliamp hour battery. How much is what's the rating on the Pixel Fold?
I think it's 4812, so right in line.
Okay, so pretty close. And this we know is probably going to run Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, so we know they're going to get more out of that battery.
Absolutely.
But what's got me really excited, first of all, the renders. We talked about the renders last week when they were leaked. It looks super dope. Like, first of all, the aesthetic, I really loved that OnePlus 7T back in the day. Remember the round camera bump? And they've been doing this again here. And then it's got 67-watt charging, supposedly. No word of wireless charging. And this is one of the things I really hope OnePlus gives us wireless. This is a flagship of all flagships for them. They've got to give us the whole enchilada, right? I know it's not super important in the great scheme of things, but them cutting that out would mean they're not really kind of like everything but the kitchen sink, right? Which I feel like they need to do. So the camera stuff is what got me excited. The main module is supposed to be a 48 megapixel IMX 890. That is the same sensor as the OnePlus 11 5G, which is a really good one. It's not the 989 or whatever, the best one, the 1-inch sensor that we've seen on the Oppo Find X6 Pro or anything like that. But it's going to be a really good one. And it supposedly has a 48 megapixel ultra wide and then a 64 megapixel telephoto, which looks from the renders to be a periscope, like a folded lens. So at least 3.5, maybe higher, like maybe 5x. And we haven't seen a good telephoto on a OnePlus phone since, forever. Like, I don't think that we ever have. Right. I think that we got a 3x non-periscope with OIS at one point. I want to say OnePlus 9 Pro or 10 Pro or 8 Pro.
Somewhere in there.
But it's been a while. It's been a while. 32 megapixel on the cover display and 20 megapixel on the inside. I mean, look, again, I've been saying this forever now. especially back in the day when Oppo and OnePlus were kind of like merging, and Oppo was always making the best phones and OnePlus was kind of getting seconds.
Yeah.
You know, I've always said we need OnePlus to give us the real flagship. And, you know, if it's a folding phone, great. Give us a real flagship that's a folding phone. Please, if you're listening, OnePlus, do not mess this up. I don't care if it's $1,800. Just show us what you can do. Just give us the whole enchilada. Give me wireless charging, god damn it.
Yeah, quick cutting corners.
Yeah, how is it that Chinese makers do not understand two things that we want in North America on our phones, no matter what, even if it's a $500 iPhone SE 3, wireless charging and 4K video recording on the front camera, please. Like, how is it that they can't nail that? Wireless charging's got to be $2 on the bill of materials.
Yeah, it's not much.
And the 4K, that's just, at this point, processing power. I don't think any camera module over 8 megapixels can do 4K. So, like, what gives? Okay.
Yeah, and Snapdragon's going to be able to handle 4K on this. So, although it's almost a given, this will have probably 8K at some point.
Yeah, and you know, probably on the main camera. But you know, the other thing is, there's rumors of this having crazy RAM and storage too. So again, go nuts, OnePlus. Please show us what you can do. Just go. Like, this is the year where you can go nuts. Be free. So, but I'm super stoked about this phone. Like, this, if I can't get my hand on a Pixel Fold, I might, because I know I'm going to get a review unit of this one.
Sure.
I might just switch to that. I did switch to the OnePlus 8 Pro for a while, so, and that was because it was the first one with wireless charging from OnePlus. All right.
So end of August is the rumor, right? That's what we're hearing.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're hearing so far. I think it's going to be close to IFA or maybe at IFA, something like that is what I'm hearing. So, yeah, warm up your wallets.
Right.
Start saving now. If you're a OnePlus fan, this might be your redemption. I mean, I don't want to say that OnePlus has been lost, but they kind of have. And I think the OnePlus 11... The OnePlus 11 was a return to form other than wireless charging, but it was solid. And I think that if they can show us again another solid phone here, you know, yes.
I'm here for it.
Another OnePlus news, I just realized that I looked at the topics and I didn't put them together. I don't know why. But OnePlus Nord 3 is launching on July 5th. This is a European market phone. A little bit of background on this, folks. The OnePlus Nord, when it came out, was essentially Carl Pei's final hooray before he left OnePlus to create nothing. You can think of the OnePlus Nord original as a proto-nothing phone. It didn't have the glyph and the LEDs, but it had 4K video recording on the front camera, and it had a Snapdragon 765G, which at the time was like definitely one of the best processors, bang for the buck value, efficiency, performance mix. It was on everything. Every Pixel that was an A Pixel had it for like 3 generations in a row, from the 4A to the 6A. I mean, that thing was an incredible. And the Nord original had everything. It had an OLED display at high refresh rate. It had tons of great cameras with OIS. It didn't have wireless charging, but it had the alert slider. Like, it was less than $500 and it had everything. And then Carl left and gave us exactly kind of the repeat of that with the Phone 1, which had, of course, the glyph stuff as an extra, like, kind of layer of icing on the cake, right?
That's some fun stuff, yeah.
So think of the Nord as a relatively important product in the rest of the world, because we get the N series Nord, which are like detuned, crappier versions.
It is.
And they're okay in their own right for our market, but they're more like Moto G competitors. Think of this more as like a Pixel 7, Pixel 8, Pixel 7a, Phone 2 coming up from nothing competitors. So this is significant. Now, July 5th, again, for those of you in Europe, you know, set your calendars. Hopefully they won't mess this one up. It looks pretty hot from the renders there. There's an alert slider on the side. And am I seeing this kind of ridged? I'm looking right now, zooming in. Oh, no, it looks like aluminum potentially on the edge, but I thought it was the ridged aluminum that they used on the OnePlus X. Remember that?
I do.
Yeah, but it's not. Oh, well.
No.
Anyway, so check that out, folks. That's coming. Next up, we have, these are all news items, Vivo X90s. So the X90, as you know, is a pretty amazing camera phone from Vivo. It's their flagship. It's kind of essentially the same as like the Oppo Find X6 Pro or the Xiaomi 13 Pro or 13 Ultra, like camera centric, full-on flagship. And so they have different X90s. They have an X90 Pro and a regular, and so this is an S, and so the 90 is like a slightly detuned from the Pro, and now they have an S version, and they've basically upgraded to the latest Dimensity 9200 Plus. I think that and another gaming phone are the only two phones that I know of right now with 9200 Plus. So yeah, this doesn't matter to our market very much, but for those of you abroad in Asia or India or something, this phone might come out at a very affordable price point for your market. So keep an eye if you're camera buff. You have any thoughts on these phones? Have you used any of them?
No, I actually haven't. Yeah, this is definitely a blind spot in my knowledge of phones, is when it comes to mainly European, Chinese market phones. They just, nowhere I write for wants to cover them, right? So I don't ever interact with them, talk about them, touch them, look into them, nothing.
I mean, you look at these prices, right? And like these have Zeiss cameras with OIS and folded lenses and things. These are pretty crazy prices. And China always has a lot of subsidies with apps and things. So, but it's still really interesting. I find if you add $100 to that, it's roughly the price it would come out in Europe kind of thing, or in the US if you had an equivalent. So still very aggressively priced. The next one up is, this is more irrelevant because the Red Magics are sold in the US, usually a little after, like a month or two after they're announced in China. I reviewed the Red Magic 8 Pro on Hot Hardware like 2 or 3 months ago. And at the time, that was one of the best gaming phones and one of the most affordable Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 phones you could buy in the US with US 5G, like compatible bands. So, the thing with the Red Magic phones is, I would never daily one, but if you want to have a specialized gaming phone that's affordable and really kicks ass, those are the phones to get. The camera is always very meh. The software experience is a little meh as well. There's a lot of like weird translations and slight bugs here and there. Yeah. But it's never showstopper. Like the phone's not going to crash in your hands or anything like that. But if you're looking for like spending a little extra than your $1,000 flagship on another phone that's just dedicated for gaming, and you don't want to spend like a fortune, like $600-700, those Red Magic phones are super great for that. The problem is that every 6 months, every time Qualcomm has a new chip, you can be guaranteed to have a new phone. Sure. And so you're kind of like, how often do you want to upgrade, right? If you're a gamer and you're hardcore, because these things are super great. So the 8S Pro, of course, has, apparently a custom binned 8 Gen 2, kind of like the Samsung Galaxy S23 series, it looks like, with a slightly faster core on the X3 core. So I don't know if that's actually what I'm understanding from this article. I'll put a link in the show notes. You guys can go digging. The 165 watt charging here, I think, is going to be China only, because every time it comes to the US, we get the big battery, but we get like half the speed of charging because they were worried it's going to explode in our faces or something.
Yeah, the 165 watt, man, when I read through this, I would love that on a phone. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so that's the Prime core I was talking about. That's going to be overclocked or whatever. And cosmetically, this looks identical to the 8 Pro I reviewed. If you want to read my review on Hot Horror, check it out. Jason, the thing about this phone is, if you get one in your hands, that will blow you away, is that it's got so little bezel and it's almost completely all screen. It's got an under display camera for the front camera that's not as crappy as Samsung's. Like, the camera is crappy, but the display, you can't see it. Like, they've somehow made it almost impossible to see. But you're holding, it's like you're holding screen. There's so little bezel and it's so rectangular, like it's so square that it's just unreal. Like, it's the phone design wise that blew my mind the most, because I felt like I was in the future. Like, I felt like I was 5 years from now, because I'm feeling like all I was holding was glass and there was a display in my face.
I love that feeling.
It's very, very cool. All right, let's see. Oh, so this is actually a good one. We can talk about this one because this is likely to come to the US. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think there's still room in 2023, post-COVID, for a S23 Fan Edition FE.
No.
Because remember, the A series have gotten so good now.
Yep.
The
Exactly.
S23 is much more affordable, right, than it was back when they did. When I did the S20 FE, the original FE, we were all fans because they were out OnePlusing OnePlus,
Exactly.
right, on their own turf. And at the time, there was a necessity for that because OnePlus was kind of stumbling. But now I don't know if that's really necessary, right?
There's just not, there's no room in the price structure and device lineup for yet another price point and another configuration. The A series, to your point, is fantastic. Those devices are good enough for what they cost. And you can get the S23 or S22 series through Samsung's Renewed program for probably cheaper than you're going to get the S23 FE. And why muddy up the waters?
Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit of a faux pas in 23. Like, I'm not saying no to Samsung because I've always loved the FEs. It's just like, it's hard to justify to me, and if you're going to want to compete with a Pixel 7a, for example, then make a Galaxy A series that, is even slightly better and slightly cheaper. Right? I don't know. I don't know. It's
the
weird.
FE, since the first one, to your point, made total sense. Since then, it's been a head scratcher. I don't know why they keep showing up.
Yeah. So Nothing announced that they are partnering with Swedish House Mafia for the sound packs for the glyphs on the Phone 2 and Phone 1 with a software update. And also that there will be a glyph composer. I guess that's a software app that lets you customize what the glyphs do.
Yeah, you use them as ringtones.
I dig the fact that they're, pardon the pun, digging in on this glyph thing. Like, look, to me, it's a gimmick, at least on Phone 1. Hopefully I'll be able to tell you when I get Phone 2. But it's a gimmick to me, but I can see how it's appealing to some folks. And if they want to persevere with that, I'm not going to say no, as long as you don't mess up the base core phone. Like,
right.
The Phone 1 was so solid, so well-rounded that the glyphs was just a icing on the cake, and I allowed it, kind of thing.
Right.
And so on the Phone 2, I'm hoping it's going to be the same. It's just bonus material. But yeah, bring it on. I love, honestly, Carl Pei is such a marketing genius.
He really is.
Like, I just love the fact that, he's got teenage engineering, he's got Swedish House Mafia now. He just knows. And it's not just him, it's his whole team, right? Like, but a strong leader helps, right? And I think that I really admire his work here. As I said before when we talked about the Nord, I really admired what he did with the Nord. And I know it wasn't a very profitable phone for OnePlus, which is possibly one of the reasons he ended up leaving or whatever. Who knows what the real story is there? I know that him and Pete are still pretty tight, though, so
good.
I'm sure there's no hard feelings. But for him to go and do his own thing was, I think, important because I think he was getting constrained. The BBK Group kind of strategy with Oppo was to bring OnePlus in and make it basically a sub-brand, and that was losing the luster that he was looking for. And so seeing him and his team kind of stretch their legs out and doing something really different with a slab phone. That's not a folding phone. That's not a different form factor, but kind of like embellishing it is very clever. I like it.
Yeah, thinking outside the box. I'm looking forward to getting a Phone 2 in my hands. I didn't use the Phone 1 at all, but watching the video, Nothing posted on Twitter of how this is all going to work, looks like a ton of fun. It is gimmicky, but people love gimmicky shit.
I think that's the thing, right? Right now, we're at that stage where people are looking for something unique and different. They want a differentiator, right?
Yep.
So why not give them something? Like, you don't have to go all out and do a folding phone to differentiate or have the biggest cover screen. Like, those are great. Those are technical achievements. I respect them. But sometimes people are wanting just a familiar form factor plus, right? And they want something else. And I think this is where Nothing comes in. And the same with their earbuds. They're so great. They're so good and so good, not like the best, but they're not Sony's WF-1000 XM4s, but they're also much more affordable, and they're super cool, and they sound great. They do the job on NNC. They have good battery life. And they, again, design differentiation is a thing. And again, even without the glyph, the design of this phone, from all the leaks we've seen, super dope, right?
Yeah,
I shouldn't say leaks because I think they're controlled, marketing
placements.
Correct, yeah. Last thing we have here is Snapdragon 4 Gen 2. I just want to mention this one because there's a bunch of nerds here that are listening, because this is a 4 nanometer 400 series chip. Like, that's holy crap. Like,
That's a
the
big
fact
deal.
that Qualcomm made a 4 nanometer chip that's essentially in their affordable line right now.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be on Moto Gs and stuff, right?
Right.
Like, that's pretty cool. There's already a phone from Xiaomi in China that launched with it. I can't remember what one it was. I think it was I want to say Xiaomi or Redmi 12S or something like that. It's not going to come to the West yet. But
No.
you know how it is. Every time Qualcomm comes out with a new chip, Xiaomi's going to have a phone with it.
Yeah,
So,
it's like same day. I mean, this chip was only announced 4 days ago.
I mean, look, this is, we don't have to get too excited here, but 4 nanometers, I think, is going to be a big game changer on phones that are smaller, more affordable. Getting battery life that's literally 2 days is what's going to mean, right?
Yep,
2 days
that's
battery
exactly
life with like a 4,500 milliamp hour battery, and some relatively, he's also inheriting some cool features from some of the higher end chips in terms of imaging and stuff. So I'll send a link to you guys and you can check it out. And I think that pretty much wraps up the news. So, Jason, do you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet, your various social media handles? I know you're like me on Blue Sky now,
I am.
more than on Twitter, right?
No, I haven't used Twitter in really any effort since, I don't know, January, February. So Twitter's probably not the best place to find me. Mastodon is, which giving out a Mastodon handle is a very awkward thing, right? So I guess Instagram, Mr. Sippy, MrCippy. I'll give my Mastodon handle. It's Mr. Sippy at mrsippy.xyz. There.
Oh, wait, did you roll out your own server?
Yeah, I have my own. I have a Raspberry Pi 4 running in my basement for my own Mastodon server. I have since the beginning, and it's phenomenal.
That is amazing, dude. You major nerd points there. I love it. I mean, I know you well enough, but I think the audience did not expect that. I am still on Twitter a lot, but I'm also on Blue Sky. You're on Blue Sky too, right?
Yep, Mr. Sippy on Blue Sky, whatever that name is.
So let's say that you should ping us on Insta for this, because I think that's what we both are still very strongly on.
Works
and
for
then
me.
Tell us where you're writing, where we can find your work.
So I freelance. I write for a lot of different publications right now. CNN Underscored, obviously, we just talked about that. I work for the Arena Group, which has like Men's Journal, Sports Illustrated stuff. There's a whole family of websites there. Just started working with Pocketlant. They're really trying to push into the U.S.
Super dope, folks. Yep.
Yeah, and so they're hiring a bunch of U.S. people. So I just started there in the last couple of weeks. Tom's Guide. And yeah, a little here and there, a few other places, Inside Hook. So all over, really.
Right on. Well, folks, go and check out Jason's work out there. Just Google his name and you'll find it. I did it last night just to look you up again. I was like, wow, oh, look at that. You're everywhere. That's great.
Over. Yeah.
So you guys know where to find me, right? Tank Girl, TNKGRL, like the comic book character. Drop the vowels. That's my handle pretty much everywhere. So that's Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram. I have a Mastodon, but I don't use it, so there's no point in sharing that with you guys. As you know, the Insta is really pictures of phones and cars and travel and food taken with phones. That's kind of the shtick. So check out the Instagram. Talk to us on Instagram about this podcast. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, it lives at mobiletechpodcast.com. We're also on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, everywhere good podcasts can be found. So please subscribe, tell your friends. If your app lets you rate or review the show, please consider doing that. It really helps. There is a YouTube channel you can subscribe to, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. I've got a lot of hands-ons, unboxings, that kind of stuff. So you know how YouTube works. Like, subscribe, click the bell, comment. You can comment about the podcast in there. Tell your friends, all that good stuff. youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. And then finally, there's a Patreon. If you really want to help, you get some perks though. So, it's not just a one-way street. Patreon.com/TankGirl. That's Patreon.com/TNKGRL. Like I mentioned on the show, there is a video version. It comes out a couple of days in advance usually. And you get sometimes some extra content because I run out of time for the main show. So I leave some stuff in. Last week, if you paid attention, you got about a 2 or 3 minute bonus of material. And stuff like that. So the video version is really like the meat of the Patreon. If you want to join it, that would be awesome. awesome. There's also a Discord server you can join as another tier. And overall, see if you can help me out. I'd appreciate it. If you don't like Patreon, you want to donate in some way, there is a PayPal link in the show notes you can click through, buy me a cup of coffee, and whatever it might be. All right. See if you can help. I'd appreciate it. And I also want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. I review a lot of phones, so I'm constantly juggling multiple devices. While that's fun, it also means I'm spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. Thankfully, there's Mint Mobile, and that's who I'm teaming up with for today's podcast. If you want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. You've probably seen the Mint Mobile ads featuring Ryan Reynolds, but let me quickly tell you how fantastic their service is, especially for tech-savvy early adopters like us. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current devices and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM card free of charge. The whole process only takes 15 minutes, and if you get stuck, Mint has a great customer service team to get you through it. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning-fast 5G and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link, mintmobile.com/mobiletech, to get premium wireless starting at $15 a month. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And I want to thank you, Jason, for being my guest yet again. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a couple of years. Let's do this more often.
Love to do that. I'll definitely have you on again soon. And folks, we'll have another podcast next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.